And we welcome you to Atlanta's Studio J for the Autotrader.com tip-off show. Ernie Johnson and the Hall of Famer Magic Johnson and the Hall of Famer Charles Barkley and Kenny the Jet Smith. How great to see y'all again.
Man, I'm excited. The NBA is back. The East is a lot better. The West is wide open. This is going to be a fun year.
That pretty much says it all.
Says it all.
It doesn't say it all. Magic, good to see you again, kid. How are you?
I'm like Charles. I'm excited. This is going to be one of the best seasons ever.
I think so too, Chuck. I mean, Kenny?
Well,
Anything to say before we get started?
Unpredictability.
Yes.
I love it.
Of the show and of the league.
Of the league.
Before it's all over, we're going to be talking to the commissioner, David Stern. We'll have East and West previews. John Thompson talking to Boston's Big Three just a bit later. Now, in recent off seasons, the NBA has found itself in a proactive role, instituting a player dress code, changing the basketball. But this past offseason, the league was in reactive mode, reacting to the revelation that one of its referees, Tim Donaghy, had bet on games, some of which he had officiated, and the league had an integrity issue on its hands.
I can tell you that this is the most serious situation and worst situation that I have ever experienced, either as a fan of the NBA, a lawyer for the NBA, or a commissioner of the NBA.
So those were the summer headlines, and this was the headline this morning in USA Today. A smiling Commissioner David Stern as the NBA season opens tonight. And joining us now to talk about that and other NBA matters on this opening night is the Commissioner David Stern, who was in San Antonio to once again hand the Spurs their championship rings tonight. Good evening, Commissioner. Thanks for joining us.
Good evening, gentlemen. Nice to be here.
Hey, let's just talk about what we just chronicled there. And I know you like to call the NBA the best reality show anywhere. But was this almost too much reality for you this summer?
Well, this was a lot of reality. It caused a lot of soul searching and sought out a place where we could all understand what happened and what this can be compared to. But as you might guess, the game is a tonic, and the combination of the U.S. national team and their performance, the international travel that many of our teams have undertaken, and most important, the fact that we could sit here and argue with Charles as to whether the Lakers should or should not trade somebody, or whether the three players on the Celtics can do it. This is what our sport is about, and I feel a sense of rejuvenation from that.
Commissioner Stern, this is Magic. Because of what happened.
Hello, Magic. How are you?
Hello, I'm doing great. With what happened this summer, what measures have you put in place to make sure that we don't get to see anything like this happen again with the scandal this summer?
Well, all I can tell you is that we will be posting the referees each morning, so no one has any special information about our games. We'll be doing deeper security checks. We'll be putting in new rules to make sure that referees don't make calls from the locker room and the like. A series of things, but I would not be truthful with you if I told you that, if I didn't let you know that if somebody wants to engage in criminal conduct in violation of the law, it's kind of tough. I often talk about FBI agents, rogue CIA agents, and the like. It's hard work, but we're going to satisfy ourselves that we have the best mechanisms in sports, and I must tell you that other leagues and other conferences are coming to us to say, okay, tell us what you're doing and let us follow on.
You know, Commissioners, for the last few years, the East has been on the back burner compared to the West, but I think we talked about it a little bit earlier. We are really excited about the improved teams in the Eastern Conference. How excited for you as the commissioner with that aspect of it?
I think that, given the fact that we've had long-suffering fans in Boston that now think they have a shot, that Gilbert and Caron are back in Washington, that we can talk about whether Eddie Curry and Zach Randolph are going to play together, or whether the fact of writing Shaq off, as many of the media have, is going to be enough of an inspiration for him to demonstrate that he still may be the greatest player on the planet. I'm very excited, and when you look and see the growth of Detroit, the growth of Chicago, I think that we're in for a doozy of a year. And sitting here in San Antonio thinking about not even leaving the state, Houston has Scola. The Mav have a lot to prove. This is going to be some place for any team, East or West, to have to visit. This state, I think, is going to be back to where it was.
Commissioner, this is Kenny. Just want to ask a quick question. So with so many teams in the preseason going overseas and playing games, what's the realistic goal of having an actual franchise or franchises over in outside of America, other than Canada, and maybe a possible All-Star game over there? What's the realistic timetable, and if there is?
I would say 5 to 10, and it won't be one. Either it's going to be a bunch or none. We've got a great new arena by AEG built in London, the builders of the Staples Center. They're building a similar building, the O2 World in Berlin. There are plans afoot for Rome, new building, Madrid, new building. When the buildings begin to be NBA ready, that's when people will begin flirting with the idea of putting 5 teams in Europe. I don't think it's anytime soon, but I do think we're talking about within the decade. And actually, as the All-Star, it's not it's an interesting. What do you think, Kenny? You think we can get a bunch of jumbo jets and take all of our fans to London?
Well, I definitely would be on one, but I think the one thing that I always said, and Bill Russell said this to me once. He said inclusion is the best part of any kind of society. So as an African American, inclusion is great. So bringing all of this bringing everybody around the world and market this great game that everyone is excited about outside. I went with the Memphis Grizzlies, and I was there in Spain, and you have Damon Stoudemire, guys who are somewhat famous or somewhat known and recognized, have such much more recognizability in other countries, which is so surprising to me, even walking down the streets.
I get such a kick out of watching our players react. I was with the Timberwolves in Istanbul. I was with the Raptors in Rome, the Grizzlies and the Raptors again in Madrid, and of course the Celtics and the Timberwolves in London. Not to mention the Cavaliers and the Magic in Shanghai and Macau. And the players were stunned because they're known 1 to 15. The fans, it's like an NBA game. It's really quite remarkable. And in fact, the Chinese think they invented basketball.
And Commissioner, closer to home.
Hey, don't laugh. They played in the 1936 Olympics in Berlin. The Chinese Olympic team played in the Olympics in 1936. It's their game.
We're making a note of that. Closer to home. What is your message to the fans in Seattle? Are they going to lose the Sonics?
We need a miracle. I don't want to soft pedal that. A lot of the government officials have made it clear they're not really that interested in subsidizing a new arena for the team. I'm sitting here in a beautiful arena in San Antonio. I've been around the track here. There are lots of community-built arenas with participation by the team, but the legislature and the city council have made it clear, and the mayor, that that's nothing they're going to do. So we're on a countdown, hoping for a miracle, but I don't know what's going to be.
Commissioner, thank you very much for taking the time tonight. Have fun out there at the ring ceremony in San Antonio tonight.
Thank you. You guys are doing a great job, and we really appreciate all that you do for us. And now I'm going to talk to Reggie because he's been giving me a little trouble, and Cheryl told me he's talking too much. So I appreciate your support here.
We got your back. When we come back, the latest on Kobe. Our insider David Aldridge will join us as the panel weighs in on the future of arguably the game's best player.
We got to start talking about bad teams. I want to talk about good teams from now on.
TNT NBA Tip-Off, presented by Autotrader.com, the ultimate automotive marketplace.
Well, there's Reggie moments ago, and there is the commissioner. I guess they're going to have that face-to-face talk about Reggie talking.
And his ears ain't shrank over the summer. Look at those things.
That's just so,
talking about the commissioner.
So uncalled for.
Wait, he don't have big ears?
It is opening night of the NBA season.
Oh, this is my fault he got big ears.
And, look at the studio all decked out. It is the
Reggie
Halloween
right now. Reggie can hear us talk about it right now.
He's turning the satellites.
Speaking of Halloween, some would consider Kobe Bryant leaving L.A. A frightening proposition. As the Lakers turn Days of Our Lives, the young and the restless, call it what you will, Lakers Vice President Magic Johnson. So, is he going to stay in L.A.? Are they going to trade him? This is a three-pronged question. And what do you make of this whole thing?
Well, first of all, it's a mess, basically. I think that, as I told Kobe anybody can ask to be traded. I applauded him that he wasn't happy, but I think the way he went about it was wrong. He should have went to Dr. Buss personally, Mitch Kupchak, whoever, and said, hey, I wanted to be traded. I didn't think he should have went to the media to do that.
Way back when?
Way back then, when. And then also, too, I think the also mistake he made was to really talk bad about the current players that he was playing with, his teammates. Now, as we come up to now, okay, he gave the Lakers 5 teams that he would like to be traded to. It was only really 2 serious players, and Dallas really wasn't a serious player. They just tried to steal him. Chicago is a team that the Lakers have been talking to, but a deal really can't get done because they don't want to include Luol Deng. And without Deng, it makes no sense to make a trade with Chicago because he's really their best player. So also the money, Kobe makes $20 million. All the players on Chicago's team that the Lakers want really don't add up to 20. So you had to almost do 4 players for Kobe Bryant.
So is he going to get traded or not?
I don't think he's going to get traded. I would try to keep him and make something happen in terms of trying to improve the team like they did try. They tried to get Kevin Garnett. They tried to get these other guys, but the trade just didn't happen.
You think he should go? You think they should deal him?
I think the reason I think he's got to go is because they can't afford to let him opt out of his contract next summer. You got to get something for him.
Well, he got 2. He got this season and next season.
I know. That's what I'm saying. In a couple of summers, he can opt out of his deal.
But the problem is you still have to get something back in return.
But so you're just going to have to make the best deal possible and start over. That's all you can do.
And I think it's difficult. What Kobe has done is he just makes it difficult for people to side with him because of his etiquette problems. The way he goes about things and the way he handles them to get them done. He makes it very difficult. When you're the best player, you may take the most shots, you make the most money, you play the most minutes, and then at times you're the most unhappy. It doesn't add up.
Well, let's bring David Aldridge into the equation now, our NBA insider and DA who is in Silver Spring, Maryland. Is there going to be a deal?
I don't think anytime sooner. I think there's been a lot of hysterical reporting, frankly, the last week or so about things. I talked to one person who's directly involved in these discussions. He said, look, there's never been a verge of anything. They've had discussions. Chicago and LA have had discussions. Everybody knows that. But as Magic said, Luol Deng is the piece that the Lakers want. The Bulls are not going to give them Luol Deng. And even if they were going to give them Luol Deng, there's so many guys that are involved in this deal, whether it's Deng, Ben Gordon, Nocioni, all of these guys have either poison pills in their contracts or they're base year players. That's a lot of jargon. What it means is it's impossible to trade them right now. You have to wait until their contracts go further down the road, maybe a year, and then they're more tradable. The only way I see this deal getting done with Chicago is if the Bulls re-sign P.J. Brown, who right now hasn't signed with anybody. He made $8 million last year, and put him in this package. And I talked to Mark Bartelstein, his agent, this afternoon. He said the Bulls have not talked to him about any type of scenario with a sign and trade. But really, right now, that's the only way you could get a deal done right now. Now, I do think the Lakers have inquired as to what it would take to get Ben Gordon signed. I was told that last week. I think they've done that. But that's not the same as getting a deal done. I think they're still talking. But I think realistically, we're talking about trade deadline at the earliest, maybe next summer before these two teams can get something done.
Hey, I heard from somebody, I think it was our producer TK, that you wanted to ask Magic something that was on your mind.
I do. I want to ask the vice president of the Lakers something because 2 team executives told me today that they heard that Jermaine O'Neal talks might be back on.
Well, of course, this summer the Lakers and Indianapolis or Indiana had a lot of different conversations about Jermaine O'Neal. They couldn't agree on a package. Of course, Indiana wanted more than the Lakers were willing to give. But I think right now that might be a scenario that it would be good for both teams, as long as it's in line with what both teams want. Because the Lakers don't want to give up more. I think Lamar Odom was one of the players and a couple other guys. So we have to look and see what happens. But I would say that makes more sense than trading him to Chicago or anywhere else. Because I'm going to tell you something. The Laker fans, as much, Charles, you might be right, but the Laker fans won't go for it. Because we got the highest ticket prices in the league. They're going to command that a superstar comes back to the Lakers. Other than that, they lose a lot of money and a lot of the fans.
But even if they get Jermaine O'Neal, they're still not one of the best teams in the West.
But see, it makes them still more competitive. And Laker fans want Kobe to stay. They'll take Kobe and lose.
I think they took steps backwards only with Kobe wanting to be traded. Oh, first he wanted more help. But when you demand a trade, now the calls don't come in about, oh, we want this guy, except we want Kobe. So now they never had an opportunity to actually seek out and get help around him throughout the summer, I feel.
Meantime, the Lakers play the Rockets in Game 2 of our doubleheader, and Craig Sager is working the sidelines of that game and has this look at the Lakers.
Thanks, EJ.
It was going to be a terrible piece.
Because that terrible suit blew up the camera.
Actually,
that's exactly what happened.
It was Halloween suit.
Halloween blew up the damn.
He wears that thing in time stands
like Mission
still.
Impossible. This coat will self-destruct in 3 seconds.
Well, since we couldn't deal with Craig on tape, let's go back to the live David Aldridge and a couple other things that are going on. DA, what's the latest on Chris Webber?
Well, let me put a bow on the Indiana stuff. I did talk to Donnie Walsh this afternoon. He said he wasn't aware that anything had changed. They still want Andrew Bynum. That's the key to that deal. Now, as far as Chris Webber goes, the Pistons have not yet written off bringing him back. The problem for Detroit right now is that they're right up against the luxury tax. Even if they pay Webber the minimum amount and the league pays some of that salary, they'd like to get a little further under the luxury tax before they bring him back. But there's still a chance that they could bring Chris Webber back this season, even though he hasn't signed with them. Obviously, the Mavericks were talking to him, but Dallas signed Juwan Howard today, so they're pretty much out of the Webber sweepstakes.
Meantime, the Denver Nuggets, obviously the first full year with AI and Melo, but also a comeback now from microfracture surgery for Kenyon Martin. What's the latest on him?
I got to tell you, Ernie, I saw them during training camp, and Kenyon Martin looked fantastic to me. He's down to 234 pounds. He's got about 8-9% body fat. And the thing that amazed me is that he's not wearing anything on either of those knees that had the microfracture surgery. He's not wearing a brace. He's not wearing a sleeve. He'd like to wear those long compression shorts you saw in the league the last couple of years before they were banned by the league to keep his legs warm. But other than that, there's nothing. I mean, he's running and jumping. And the most important thing is that he and George Karl have come to an arrangement and an understanding about each other, a little bit more respect on both ends for what the other guy's doing. And going forward, the Nuggets feel like he's going to be one of the key factors for them. They're talking about winning 60 games, and they're serious about it this season. They feel like with him, Camby, and Nene getting healthy, their front court is going to be as good as anybody's this year. Add Carmelo and AI to that, they're going to be pretty good.
Another one of the stories to follow as we open the season here on TNT. Thanks a lot, DA. And
okay, thanks.
When we come back on the AutoTrader.com tip-off show, it was the signature off-season move in the NBA, the big ticket, a hot ticket in Boston. But Kevin Garnett is just one member of the new-look Celtics as he and Ray Allen join forces with Paul Pierce. John Thompson goes 1-on-3.